not only to talk about the awesome days that are coming, but also to understand what is actually going to go on now in Amsterdam now that we have a Heilige Yeshiva here. I would like to begin by telling you a very interesting thing. In the early 1900s, there was a great Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Yankov David Volotsky, the Ritvaz, and he had written a parish on the Yerushalmi. And he came to New York, and he wanted that they should help fund this parish that he was writing. And there was a very big olam that gathered, and he said something that is so important that I believe is the essence of why we came here tonight. And he said like this: over the years in Klal Yisrael, there were many different generations. And some generations had mitzvah yidden. That means they were simple balabatim. They didn't know anything about learning, but they loved doing mitzvahs. For example, the mitzvah of kashrus. There was some adaik in kashrus, and they gave that over to their children and grandchildren. And then there were other generations that loved other mitzvahs. Shabbos. Shabbos was so special to these people, and they would give over that love of Shabbos to their children and grandchildren. And then yet there were others, not only kashrus, and not only Shabbos, but tefillah. But he said, those generations, unfortunately, didn't continue. Why? And he said something genius. He said, the Pasuk tells us, Ki ner mitzvah v'torah or. Ner mitzvah, a mitzvah is a ner, is a candle. Any mitzvah that you can think of, kashrus, tefillah, Shabbos, it's only a candle. And what happens if we were to have a candle right here now, and somebody lit the candle, and you opened up windows, the wind would blow out the candle. So when you had generations, even if they were mitzvah yidden, and there was the winds of secularism, and the winds of immorality, and the winds of materialism, they blew out those generations, they assimilated. But what happens if you have a big raging fire and the wind comes? What does happen to that fire? The fire spreads and it gets more. Zok nemitvaz. Ki ner mitzvah, but Torah is or. Torah is the light. When you have a yeshiva in a neighborhood, and you have a beis medrash where people are able to come and learn, and you have Yom Light that eventually will become chavrusas with all of you, and inspire you and your children, that's going to keep on going for generations and generations and generations. I asked this gentleman sitting right here, I said, who was that president? I was trying to remember his name, Mr. Rosen. You know how proud he would be that the Agudas Yisrael is helping that a yeshiva should be built in this neighborhood? That's tremendous, because that's the future, and that's the guarantee for the future generations, so that all of your children will be able to look like this Rosh Yeshiva who grew up right here in this beis medrash. So tonight, as we prepare for the Heilig Stateg, for the holy days of the year, we should know that we're starting off in the right direction. I told the boys and the girls this morning, all of you that have children in that school, such beautiful children, so attentive, so respectful, so wonderful. And I told them something that I want to share with all of you. There's a famous Pasuk in Amos. The Pasuk tells us, Aryeh Sha'og, Milo Yira. Aryeh, if a lion roars, wouldn't you be afraid? You walked out in the street and you see a lion roaring, everybody would be terrified. So Mefarshim say, Aryeh, Aleph is Elul, Reish is Rosh Hashanah, Yud is Yom Kippurim, and Hey is Hoshana Rabbah. Aryeh Shah, these days are roaring to us. Milo Yira, wouldn't we be afraid? And these are days when we are afraid, and we want to improve. So many Mefarshim say this. But a number of years ago, on Kol Nidre at night, my Rav, Rav Shlomo Tanabam, said something that was so adorable, what he said. He said, I don't know what the Pasuk is talking about. I took my children last year, Cholamoy Tsukis, to the Bronx Zoo. That's a very big zoo in New York. We all saw a lion. The lion was roaring, and nobody was afraid. You know why nobody was afraid? Because the lion was in a cage. And if you put the lion in the cage, you can yell his head off. Nobody cares. Nobody's afraid. And that's the lesson. If Kaviyachol Chas V'Shalom, we put Hashem in a cage, and we don't have a connection to Hashem, we're not going to be afraid. When we approach the Aryeh in the street, and we see the days of Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippurim, and Hoshana Rabbah, it's without mechitzas. It's without a curtain. It's without the iron bars. We have to come close to Hashem. And of course, these days are awesome. And we have to be able to answer back that roar. Kolovi yokum. We have to be like that lion that roars back. How are we going to roar back? And that's what I've come to talk about tonight. I want to share with you a beautiful story. This story is so beautiful, as you will see in a moment. But the best part of the story and the lesson that we learn most is the way Reb Chaim Kanievsky, so like Levin and Gezutzai, how he understood the story. There was a fellow, let's call him Nachman. Nachman lived in America. He grew up in America. He learned in the yeshivas. He went to the kollel for a few years, and then he went into business. And he became very, very wealthy. And he decided that he's going to move his family to Eretz Yisrael. Now, every few years, he would come back to New York to do business. And sometimes, when he was in New York, he would go down to Florida, to Miami, because he had two religious cousins. Irreligious cousins, Nati and Zahava. They had no use for Eretz Yisrael. They were not religious at all. And they left Eretz Yisrael. They came down to Florida, to Miami. Now, Nati and Zahava knew that when Nachman comes to his house, to their home, he's not going to eat anything there. So they would go out to one of the kosher restaurants in Miami, or else he would get some takeout food, and they would eat on plastic dishes or paper dishes. And Nachman knew every time he was going to come to Nati's house, 5 minutes before Nati put on his kippah. Now you can see if somebody just put on a yarmulke 5 minutes before. Looks like a little triangle, you know, like how you see these guys at the Geisel, these Chinese guys who are putting on the paper yarmulke. But this time when he came 3-4 years ago, he noticed that the yarmulke sat very comfortably on Nati's head. Never happened before. And not only that, he looked around and he saw on all the doorposts there were mezuzahs. And he sees a sefer on the table. And he says, Nati, you know, like, this is amazing to me. Has something happened here that I don't know about? Was there a change here the last couple of years? And he says, Nachman, boy, you picked that up really fast. We became Balei Tshuva. It's true, you're right. He said, wow, that's amazing. And he hugged him and he kissed him. He said, tell me, how did that happen? He said, I'll tell you how it happened. He said, a few years ago, a couple of weeks after you left, my wife and I were sitting on the porch. It was very hot, late in the afternoon. And suddenly we see a whole group of men walking towards the river, towards the water. They're wearing shirts and ties and suits. They're very well dressed. Now, my wife and I looked at each other. When people are going to the beach in Miami, they're not going in a suit and a tie. And then I said to my wife, oh my goodness, it's Rosh Hashanah today. These people are going to Tashlach. He said, I remember Tashlach as a kid. When I was in Israel, I used to go to Tashlach. He said, I don't know what possessed me. I went into my house, I got my kippah, I put it on my head, and I decided I'm going to walk with them. I'm going to go see how they do it. Now, as soon as I started walking with them, everybody turned around because I looked so different. But we come to the water, and everybody takes out their mazorim, they're starting to read, and one guy comes over to me and says, you know how to read Hebrew? He says, yeah, I'm Israeli. I can read Hebrew. He says, you know what Tashlach is? He says, yeah, of course I remember Tashlach as a kid. So would you like to say what everybody's saying? Yeah, I'll say it. So they gave me a mamzer. I read the words in Hebrew, and I gave it back to mamzer. And I was about to leave, and then a guy came over.